Hi, Sean. Welcome to the Animal Tone podcast.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
I mean, I imagine it must be really hard because being at that conference, one thing that really stood out to me was the differences of opinion, right? It's not like all vets agree on everything. And I wrote a brief blog entry about it where everyone was saying that we're here for the animals. You know, I think everyone in that room would agree that they were there for the animals and doing this work for animals in some shape or form, whether it's from a pragmatic perspective of saying, um, animal use is not going to end tomorrow. So how do we make that use more palatable? So others saying making it more palatable is the problem in the first place because this produces productivity. I mean, it increases productivity and it just makes that kind of use acceptable. In the kind of socially acceptable in the status quo. But I think what was really interesting was to kind of question whether or not and how vets are part of this conversation, especially I think as things like One Health are taking more and more of a center stage at the moment. So I think a lot of people are saying, well, vets should be the ones standing up on the stage because they understand animals best, or they really understand both the medicine and maybe some of their evolutionary desires, etc. So vets would be the best ones to kind of politically represent animals. But then there are others who are saying they're not so convinced. I think it was Karen Heistent. I'm not saying. I really enjoyed her kind of presentation where she said she wasn't convinced whether or not vets were the correct one. So it's really, I think, great to see that these conversations are happening. Really, I think I imagine it must be really interesting work and challenging work because it feels like you're probably damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You're talking to me and you're damned if you do, and you're talking to someone else and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah. So I'm certainly interested in all of that. I suppose my perspective, there clearly is a status quo of animal use. Humans do use animals for different purposes across the planet and across cultures and throughout history. So that is a given. That it's not to say that the types and nature of the use won't and shouldn't change, but it is a fact that we do use animals and derive benefits from animals at the moment. And it seems a good thing that there ought to be in the equation and representation of how they're used and how their interests are both explored and then to be understood, and then once understood, advocated for. If there can be a trusted, evidence-based, ethically founded professional that the public are, at the moment at least, willing to listen to, and then that person is classically described as the veterinary surgeon or the veterinarian. So vets given this sort of public role and something of a public expectation that we will be the voice of the animals. Okay, so that's a bit of a classic characterization of our work, that we're present. As I say, we are in slaughterhouses, we are in racing stables, we see what's going on, we're at the coal face of animal use. Whatever is being discussed and described elsewhere, the bottom line is we are there, we're witnessing, we're seeing it, and we have, yes, relationships with those who are deriving particularly financial benefit from doing it. So there's a clear potential conflict as well. But that notwithstanding, we're there and we can see it. So we have access. I think, so that's quite a privileged sort of pedestal to be put on, as a professional. But my starting point is I would like to see us grow into it. I think I can see the value and the persuasive nature of that type of argument, that if you did have a voice of the animal present in all of these places, really doing their job, without fear or favor, and fulfilling that opportunity and duty, then that's a good thing. But there's work to be done to secure and maintain that position. And maybe the two that I'd pick on, one is that we've classically been trained in sort of animal physiology, animal basic biology, of course, then the clinical things like pharmacology and pathology and all that kind of stuff. But the emergent field of science, as you know, has been in how we assess and understand animal interests, how they perceiving the world and how they're feeling and what matters to them. And our profession I think is quite open, that we've not kept up with that area of
Mm.
science. So that definitely then puts us at a disadvantage. We can't really be seen as the leaders and guardians for animal welfare if we are less skilled than others in understanding how we understand the nature of their being and how they understand, how they relate to the world. So there's that risk that we should, I think we are addressing, and that's improving, but it's recognized as a risk. And the other one that I've already touched on is the potential conflicts of interest. There's the so-called veterinarians trilemma, which is the conflicts that can arise between our different duties to the animal, to the business and client that we work for, and to ourselves and the profession. We're trying to draw a line of best fit in many ways through those different stakeholder interests. And although we absolutely should be putting the animal's interests first, and I think any time that is discussed or consulted upon, it's always agreed and re-agreed that that's who we should be putting first. There nevertheless remains a challenge of implementing that. Someone's paying you to be there, and even just tactically, you can get people. You're thinking about human behavior change and human psychology. If you don't deliver that advocacy and communicate it in the right or most effective way, you'll just get a defensive and potentially hostile reception to it as well. So